what do you tell your children? Like, do you give them the truth? Do you tell them how this country feels about you, like my parents did? Or do you tell them a lie and you just have them grow up in this bubble until that bubble is burst by some racist?
I just never understood. I don't think I just would ever understand why the color of my skin or where I'm from has effect on how other people would treat me.
There are a lot of good people in this world. However, the problem in the past is too many of those good people have been silent.
I realized I had to teach my son, you can't really just be a kid because you're a black boy. And then when he got older, you had to say, like, doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, just stay alive. Like, come home to me. Like, our goal is not about right or wrong or justice. This is what it means to be black in America.
I am Hawk Newsom. I'm the chairperson of Black Lives Matter Greater New York.
My name is Sydney. I'm 18. I was born and raised in Texas, Dallas, Texas.
My name is Charles Person. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. And I guess in my earlier life, I was a student activist, and I was also one of the original 13 Freedom Riders.
I'm Danielle Schutz from Colorado Springs originally. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Colorado Trust. I am the proud mom of two amazing children, Makai, who is almost 18, and Layla, who is 13.
Well, and if you live in the South, especially the segregated South, you grew up in a culture where you knew where your place was. In other words, before I got out on my own and started doing things, I was given a list of do's and don'ts. In other words, I could read, so I knew white, if a water fountain says white, and one was for color. The same with restrooms and other indignities that was a part of segregation of Jim Crow. Well, the Supreme Court had passed two laws that said it was that all passengers in interstate commerce should be allowed to use all facilities there, and to remove all the signs that said white, colored, and so forth. We decided to test those facilities throughout the South, and we knew that the further south we got, the more difficult it may become. The idea was very simple. We were riding buses just like everyone else. We paid the same fare as everyone else, yet they treated us differently.
I'm a black woman, but I'm biracial. And I grew up in a home that I feel didn't prepare me to walk out into the world and be perceived as a black woman. Well, my son is going to engineering school more than just to be an engineer, but to really make way for other black engineers. So I'm really excited for him and proud of him. And it's a little scary to go to school where folks aren't gonna look like you. And so I've just been doing my best to try to prepare him for that with my own experiences, because every room I walk into, people don't look like me either.
I think my parents gave me a proper education on blackness because they met at a civil rights rally. They were both activists. My aunt was a member of the Black Panther Party. My mother used to sneak out of her house to go to Black Panther meetings.
When my parents were my age, things were, of course, a lot different back then, where maybe you couldn't be as vocal. If you're being watched in the store or if they refuse service to you, I mean, that's just how it is. But, I would cause a whole riot if that ever happened to me. So, they didn't have cameras to pull out back then to record and expose people. But we do, so.
Because when they do reach driving age, and when they're out at night, and we just know that if they're stopped, how to conduct themselves, I always tell them, have all your papers in order. Don't be fumbling for anything. Don't make any unnecessary moves, because it can maybe be construed as you're reaching for a weapon. So these are things that you probably never have to consider telling your kids, but these are fundamental things that our kids have to realize, because they're just suspected of doing wrong even when they're not. You have some of the greatest kids in the world, sweetest kids in the world, and they're lumped into one big group, and they're treated so much differently than other kids.
My son turned 12, and I remember him saying, "Hey mom, my friends and I are gonna go ride our bikes to 7-Eleven." And I live in a predominantly white neighborhood. And I decided to let him go. And I said, "You have to be back in 30 minutes. And then we had to have a conversation about what he was allowed to wear. He had on a hoodie at the time, a black hoodie. And I said, "You need to take that off. You can't wear that to the store with your friends." And then I, of course, explained why I felt that way, and why he couldn't do that. And then I had to explain to him all the behaviors that he had to exercise in the store. And then I had to explain to him that your friends are not having this conversation with their parents right now. If anything goes wrong, they'll blame you. They're gonna be suspicious when you walk in. And I had that conversation with him, and the second he walked out the door, I burst into tears.
You have society consistently telling you that you are less than, that your life doesn't matter, that your life has absolutely no value in the eyes of the world. So not only are you fighting normal mental stresses like, paying rent or am I attractive or, regular stuff, you're dealing with your Black self-esteem. Right? What's your Black self-esteem? How do you feel about being Black?
It's been a problem for such a long time, but now because social media is spread so quickly, everyone across the world has seen what's been happening in America, and it proves that this is more than politics, that this is more than just, this is just happening in America, but this is the life of a Black person or a person of color.
Protest is designed to upset people. If you were able to have a conversation with that person or that group, you would need to protest. But generally, you're talking to someone who is not interested, don't care, and won't listen.
There's an act of protest when I show up in the room, looking the way I do, or if I say, "I'm gonna wear my hair in this braid," even though I know that is seen as an ethnic hairstyle that someone might make a comment about. As a Black woman, I'm gonna talk about my son who is almost 18, and I'm gonna say I'm scared for him. I don't want him to ever have to interact with the police. And I'm gonna say it in rooms where it's traditionally unacceptable.
We held a march in Times Square, even though they tried to keep us out. We had about 25,000 people in Times Square who were celebrating solutions. And that was love and hugs. All the people were coming together, promoting a society without oppression. And that was special. It was very special.
I did not wake up that morning thinking I was going to be a part of a protest. When you're in that moment, you know what you're doing is right. It's kind of crazy how you actually go into another place in your mind where it's like, okay, I might be getting tear gassed and, have the threat of being arrested or being beat or whatever, but I'm alive, I'm breathing. George Floyd couldn't breathe, but I'm breathing. So I'm here shouting for him. I'm here shouting for Breonna Taylor and everybody else.
I get letters all the time to some who felt that they were hopeless and helpless and too small, and they realized that none of those things are true, that they can make a change. And I think that's one of the differences. What's happening now is those people who in the past were silent or speaking up.
Things are gonna change. Yeah, not permanently or perfectly, but I think we're gonna move the needle in ways that we have not been able to do in a long time, because a lot of us have been having this same fight for a long time. But the allyship and the sharing of power and the sharing of voice that has come with this momentum is different.
I want to create a society where we do not need police. However, if you want to change the police force, two things are going to happen. Either they're going to be scared to harm somebody because of repercussions from the community, or two, the politicians will start having these officers prosecuted. They will create laws and jail cops who harm people. People are tired now. People are tired of dying. and they don't see any help on the horizon. So they have to be the change that they want to see in the world. Lately
now, just seeing everything, it's, giving me a lot of anxiety, but I just feel like change is coming. And it's good to know that there's so many people on our side, people of so many different races. So I just think that just speaks so much volume. So it's scary, but you have to have some type of peace of mind that it'll be okay.